If you wanted to drink a session beer in Germany, here's what you'd do. You think I'm making this up? I assure you I'm not. It's called a Saures Radler, or a sour cyclist. Yeah, I don't really get it either. I've been to some beer tents at Wiesn that won't serve this to you, so you'll have to assemble it yourself. However, in the past few years, many of the breweries around Munich have started to create their own alcohol-free beers. And for the most part, they're pretty good. But there has been one holdout. The oldest, most traditional brewer here has held off on releasing their own version. Until now. This stuff has been really hard to find. I've been to dozens of grocery stores and beverage centers, and I found nothing. Zip. Zero. Nada. That wasn't until last week when I went to the kiosk around the corner from my house, and they happen to have an entire cooler filled with these guys. So I snapped up a few. I actually went back the next day to try and grab a few shots for this video, and they were all gone. And that's pretty much the story I found everywhere. I went to a Getränkmarkt not too far from me, and I was talking to an employee there. He said as soon as they get a shipment in, they're gone the same day. So why is everyone going nuts for this beer? Augustiner has been around since 1328, or about 100 years before the printing press was invented. It was started by Augustinian monks brewing beer in their abbey. They even brewed for the royal Bavarian family. Well, that is until they started their own brewery, but that's a story for a different time. The last new beer that Augustiner introduced was about 4 decades ago, and that was a Hefeweizen. They haven't changed their beer labels in about 20 years. They're still privately owned, and it's not a stretch to say that they're probably the most traditional of all the Munich breweries. So it probably shouldn't come as much of a shock why it took them 6 years longer than the other breweries to create their own alcohol-free beer. I am so excited to try this. Now, I do have the original Helles for comparison. Now, if you notice here, this says alcohol-free hell. Now, if you live in Munich, you know what a hell is. But if you're not from here, let me explain. Helles is a style of lager. It's light and sweet. It's kind of like a Pilsner, but not quite as dry. They're not super common to find outside of Germany, I don't think, especially in the States. We typically have a lot more ales or maybe Pilsners. And they call this new beer a Helles as well, so they should be pretty similar. Wow. I was not expecting that. Oh my God. I don't know if it's really fair to even compare these two directly. I mean, they both say Helles, but really, you can't expect this to taste just like this. Really, this should be compared against the Saures Radler we made earlier, because that's sort of a more close approximation of a session beer. But, wow. Yeah, I was not expecting this. All right, let's 1 second. Let's see how this compares. Tastes like water. It tastes like beer. Oh my God. Why does this taste so much more like beer than all the other alcohol-free beers I've had? I don't get it. Basically, there are two ways for producing alcohol-free beer. The first is to produce a low-gravity wort, or a wort that contains less sugar than for a normal beer. Another part of this can also be to stop fermentation shortly after it begins. Now, there are a few problems with this method. First of all, if you are stopping this fermentation early, there's more sugar left over, which is going to result in a sweeter tasting alcohol-free beer. The second method is to de-alcoholize it, or to remove the alcohol after the brewing process. The problem with this method is it can lead to a slightly sour tasting beer. From what we can tell, Augustiner is using a mix of both methods for their alcohol-free Helles.
Yeah, I think it's not so hard to see why these are impossible to find. My only criticisms of it really are just it's hard to find. It doesn't have the same weird sweetness that a lot of these other alcohol-free beers have, and it also doesn't taste like nothing, like water. I mean, damn. They are so similar, it's not even funny. Wow. Anyway, summertime, I can see this being very refreshing. If you can find one in a store, definitely try and pick one up. And if you do, leave a comment below, let me know what you think. I wonder what would happen.
I swear I'm not making this up.